Hey everyone, welcome to Alpha Insights. I'm Lane and with me is Adam. And hey, if you have questions while you're listening, drop them at stockalpha.ai.
Morning, Lane. Morning, everybody. We've got a lot on the cannabis sector. Policy headlines, court moves, and a credit story that really matters heading into the long weekend.
Quick housekeeping. US markets are closed today, so any price checks should use quotes as of Friday, May 1st, and you can check live numbers when markets reopen on Monday.
Right.
So, big picture first. There's a weird mix of signals. Federal and state actions are simultaneously expanding access for some products while cracking down on others. And then you have this public vendor credit scoring popping up that throws a spotlight on who owes what.
Exactly. And to add to that, Whitney Economics put a number on receivables. They estimate more than $3.8 billion in delinquent receivables at the end of last year. That's a lot of counterparty exposure in a still young industry. So the real question here is how vendors respond. We're already seeing vendors publish a public credit score that names low-rated operators. That's reputational pressure plus a practical push toward tighter payment terms.
Yeah, that's a good point. When companies get named publicly, it's not just embarrassment. Analysts know it can accelerate liquidity stress because vendors may demand cash on delivery or shorter payment windows.
Interesting.
Let's pivot to the federal side. The DEA clarified that HHC, that synthetic hexahydrocannabinol compound, is considered a Schedule I substance and therefore not protected as hemp. Plus, the U.S. House passed the Farm Bill without changing hemp-derived cannabinoid rules, which keeps November as a key policy deadline.
I mean, when you look at the data, that DEA clarification closes a legal avenue for synthetic cannabinoid producers. Expect short-term uncertainty for product lines that leaned on those compounds.
And that November timeline matters. The Farm Bill vote left the status quo in place for now, but rules could change later this year, so product portfolios with hemp exposure have a policy cliff to watch.
Exactly. On the state front, Texas is a great example of patchwork outcomes. A judge issued a temporary injunction stopping enforcement of a ban on smokable hemp and certain hemp-derived items, which keeps those products on shelves for now, even as other cases pursue Delta 8 restrictions.
That creates real regional fragmentation. Some retailers can sell certain hemp products, others can't. If you track supply chains, that kind of patchwork drives complexity and compliance costs.
And over in California, regulators are tweaking licensing rules after federal rescheduling moves to make it easier for marijuana businesses to pursue federal tax relief and other benefits. That's an example of state policy aligning with federal shifts.
Right. Rescheduling doesn't instantly solve tax or banking issues, but state-level alignment could improve margins over time for compliant operators who can actually access those benefits. Back to credit risk for a sec. Vendors tried to get California lawmakers to mandate timely payments, and those bills failed. So vendors are using public naming and scoring instead of legislative backstops. Analysts say watch days sales outstanding, receivables aging, and vendor complaints as early warning signs.
Honestly, I was a bit surprised by how public the vendor scoring got. It changes negotiating leverage quickly. And yes, for some operators, that could turn into a liquidity squeeze.
Short reactions. What should listeners be watching next week? DEA enforcement actions around HHC, state court calendars in places like Texas, licensing rollouts in California, and updates from that vendor credit platform.
Also, keep an eye on the big names people use to gauge the sector. The major cannabis ETF and companies such as Trulieve, Green Thumb, Curaleaf, and Tilray. Look for commentary and filings and any notes about hemp product exposure or receivables pressure.
Quick reminder, we're not here to recommend trades. Analysts note these are factors to monitor. Policy winners and losers will emerge, and selectivity matters.
Right. To sum up, federal clarity on HHC raises enforcement risk for synthetic products. State moves can either constrain or open up opportunities, depending on the jurisdiction. And credit stress is a real operational risk, with more than $3.8 billion in delinquent receivables on the books.
Keep an eye on November rulemaking, DEA guidance or prosecutions, state court outcomes, and vendor signals. Those are the levers that will shift sector fundamentals.
Got it. Final thought. Stay selective. Check corporate filings for receivables and liquidity, and monitor live quotes when markets reopen on Monday for how the market prices all this.
Okay, quick wrap. Key takeaways.
Policy is moving in both directions. Expansion in some areas, restriction in others.
Credit risk is front and center. That vendor scoring and $3.8 billion of delinquent receivables changes how you view counterparties.
And watch the November hemp rule timeline, DEA enforcement on HHC, and state-level legal developments closely.
That's our show. Remember, this is informational only, not personalized investment advice. Analysts note these are risks and catalysts to monitor, not instructions to buy or sell.
Got questions? We'd love to hear from you. Head over to stockalpha.ai where you can ask us anything and we'll answer live. And while you're there, check out more market content.